Directly from the heart of the Etihad Stadium, the news that will shake the Manchester City universe has arrived with full force. Amid unexpected twists, behind-the-scenes decisions, and emotional statements, the club is undergoing a major transformation. And if you thought that the recent victory over Crystal Palace meant calm in the background, prepare yourself. The situation is far from being tranquil. After an electrifying match in which Manchester City had to come from behind, having conceded 2 early goals, it was Kevin De Bruyne who led the comeback. With a superb free kick and direct involvement in Omar Marmoush's equalizer, the number 17 not only helped the team turn the game around, but also sent a clear message. He is determined to finish his journey at the club at the highest level. Even with uncertainty in the air, he wants to leave a legacy of performance and dedication. But while the Belgian shines on the field, behind the scenes, the movements never stop. The information that grabbed the headlines in recent days came straight from Portugal. Bernardo Silva is reportedly willing to forego part of his wages to return to Benfica. The club that brought him up and where it all began for the Portuguese star is said to be mobilizing to bring him back, and the player is willing to sacrifice part of his salary to make this emotional return. At 30 years old, with a career marked by titles, decisive performances, and iconic moments in the City shirt, Bernardo hasn't had his best season, but he is still an essential part of Guardiola's system. The possibility of his departure is not something taken lightly in Manchester. His tactical intelligence, versatility, and commitment have always been praised by Guardiola, who has referred to the Portuguese as one of the most complete players he has ever worked with. If this transfer actually happens, Bernardo will leave the club as a historic figure, with the status of a modern legend. The fans, of course, are divided. Some believe the cycle has ended, while others argue that the club must do everything to keep him. After all, players like him don't come around every day. And as if this potential departure weren't enough news, manager Pep Guardiola made statements that resonated throughout the football world. In his post-match press conference following the victory over Crystal Palace, he labeled the current season as a real nightmare, with the main reason being the sheer number of injuries. The physical strain on his players, exacerbated by a packed schedule, has been one of the club's biggest obstacles in recent months. Guardiola was blunt. It's been extremely difficult dealing with the number of players in the medical department. This compromises not only our performance, but also the consistency of our game. As a more recent example, the manager cited goalkeeper Ederson, who left the pitch against Palace after feeling an issue with his groin again, the same problem that had previously kept him out. Despite his notable performance throughout the match, including an accurate assist for James McAtee's goal, the Brazilian keeper had to be substituted for Ortega, who once again showed composure between the posts. However, the uncertainty now revolves around the severity of the injury and how long Ederson may be sidelined. Guardiola has yet to provide an official prognosis, but all signs point to the fact that City will have to continue, once again, without their first-choice goalkeeper for a few games. The concern is heightened because it's not just Ederson who has been the subject of speculation. There are rumors that Saudi clubs are monitoring the goalkeeper's situation, interested in bringing him in during the upcoming transfer window. Ortega, in turn, is also reportedly being considered by Bayer Leverkusen, which makes the position more vulnerable to changes than previously thought. In this context of uncertainty, Kevin De Bruyne's name has resurfaced with force. After much speculation and silence, the player himself spoke out about his future. In an honest interview, he confirmed that he will leave Manchester City at the end of the season. The reason? His contract will not be renewed, and according to him, the decision came from the club. It was a hard moment to digest for fans who have followed him for a decade. The midfielder, who arrived at the club as a big bet and became one of the greatest names in recent Premier League history, is ready to embark on a new chapter. De Bruyne admitted that his children are anxious about the change, as they were born and raised in Manchester. It's something completely new for them. They are nervous and excited at the same time, he shared. He also revealed that he underwent a hernia surgery this season and after 6 weeks without pain is feeling good physically again. I still want to play. I feel ready. I am training well. "I just don't know where my next challenge will be," he stated. Saudi Arabian clubs have already expressed interest. Inter Miami, who hold the players' discovery rights in MLS, is also emerging as a possible destination. Still, there is room for European teams or even Premier League clubs to make offers. The market is open, and Kevin, with his experience and quality, still has a lot to offer. As the days pass and the season's final stretch approaches, every City match feels like a farewell for two players who have defined an era, Bernardo Silva and De Bruyne. The fans find themselves divided between the nostalgia of what was built and the curiosity of what lies ahead. And as if the potential exits weren't enough, the club is already making moves for the future. With the imminent change in the sporting management, Cheeky Begiristain will say goodbye after 12 years and Hugo Viana will take over. City is also beginning to look at new names to build next season's squad. Among the targets is Destiny Udogie, the Tottenham Hotspur left-back, who has caught attention for his solid performances and growth potential. However, he is not the only one on the radar. Nathaniel Brown, the young prospect from Eintracht Frankfurt, is also being closely watched. Brown, who predominantly plays on the left but is capable of adapting to other roles on the field, caught the attention of City scouts in a Europa League match against Tottenham. His performance was praised both defensively and offensively, winning most duels and showing efficiency in dribbling. His versatility has been compared to João Cancelo and Alexander Zinchenko, two players who also stood out at City for their ability to play in different positions. The 21-year-old is seen as a rising star in European football, and his constant presence on watch lists of top clubs only reinforces this perception. Meanwhile, City remains vigilant in the market, aware that the current cycle is nearing its end. The reshuffle seems inevitable, and the names being discussed show that the club is already thinking long-term. The challenge will be to maintain competitiveness and renew the squad without losing its winning identity. With the increasingly evident scene of change, Manchester City is heading into the final stretch of the season, which promises to be decisive not only on the pitch but also off it. The movements behind the scenes suggest that the club is going through a moment of strategic transition, and this goes beyond just the main squad. The reshaping is already showing clear signs both in the technical field and in the sports management. The departure of Cheeky Begiristain, after 12 years as sporting director, marks the end of an era. During his time, City went through one of the most successful phases in its history. The arrival of names such as De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, Ederson, Rodri, Ruben Dias, and many others passed through Begiristain's hands, who also played a crucial role in solidifying Pep Guardiola as the head of the project. Now, with Hugo Viana tipped to take on this role, the club signals a new direction, possibly focusing on emerging talents, academy development, and a balance between experience and youth. This new approach is also reflected in the way the club has been monitoring less high-profile names but with great potential for growth, such as Nathaniel Brown. The young German, although still not a name of impact on the international scene, presents characteristics highly valued by Guardiola: tactical adaptability, physical intensity, and game reading. His recent performance, including against Tottenham, has garnered praise not only from the Frankfurt coaching staff, but also from various international analysts. Brown seems to be the ideal prototype of player for the new Manchester City cycle: young, technical, versatile, and with room for development. The interest in him is not isolated. Along with Udogie from Tottenham, another name that has caught the club's radar, City is signaling that they are looking for fullbacks who can offer width, mobility, and positional intelligence, attributes that have been crucial to the team's success in recent seasons. It is important to remember that, during the golden years under Guardiola's command, the role of fullbacks went far beyond the traditional. They became key pieces to create numerical superiority in midfield, to initiate offensive build-ups, and even to close defensive spaces in a hybrid manner. Players like Cancelo and Zinchenko embodied this transformation, and now the club seems to be searching for worthy replacements for this style of play. Meanwhile, on the field, the team continues fighting to secure its place in the next edition of the Champions League. The convincing 5-2 victory over Crystal Palace showed that, despite the adversities, the competitive spirit still pulses strongly within the squad. The reaction after going 2 goals down was a reflection of the resilience built over years of success. Kevin De Bruyne was once again the game changer. In a match where everything seemed to point to yet another difficult afternoon, the Belgian took responsibility, led the comeback, and made it clear that, even in his final season with the club, his ambition remains intact. This is even more impactful when considering that he has come from a season marked by physical issues. The hernia that kept him out for part of the campaign, combined with the pressure of a team struggling to find its rhythm, could have taken away his protagonism. But no, he returned, is pain-free, and wants to end this journey memorably. At the same time, the announcement of his departure has shaken the dressing room, the fans, and Guardiola himself. While the manager has made it clear that the decision not to renew was the club's, he did not hide his admiration and affection for the player. De Bruyne is not just a symbol of talent, but also of leadership and dedication. His absence, from next season onwards, will leave a massive void, not only technically, but also emotionally. Meanwhile, Bernardo Silva remains an enigma. The fact that he is willing to accept a pay cut to return to Benfica shows that his bond with the Portuguese club remains strong. It is a gesture that not only demonstrates affection for the team that gave him his start, but also a possible desire to end his career at home. For many players, this reconnection with their roots is a way of giving meaning to the end of their career cycle. The question that remains is, will Manchester City give up 2 of their most important midfielders from the Guardiola era in the same transfer window? This would imply a profound change in the structure of the team. Even though the club has replacement pieces and promising young players, replacing 2 of the team's key players at the same time will require surgical precision in the transfer market. And as if all of this weren't enough, injuries continue to plague the squad. The case of Ederson is the most recent and painful example of the curse that has followed City throughout the season. The goalkeeper, who has always been known for his physical resilience and ability to perform at a high level over long periods, was forced to leave the pitch after feeling his groin injury again. Guardiola was honest when commenting on the situation. He admitted that the recurrence of this problem is concerning and that the season has indeed been marked by an abnormally high number of injuries. We've never had so many physical problems in a row. We've lost important players for weeks, and in some cases, months. This affects everything, from training to how we set up the team, the manager lamented. With Ederson out for an indefinite period, Ortega Moreno steps in as the starter. And, interestingly, the substitute has shown security and consistency whenever called upon. There are even those who argue that Ortega could be a starter at various European clubs. His name, in fact, has been making waves in the background at Bayer Leverkusen, who is looking for an experienced goalkeeper to strengthen their squad for next season. This brings us to another delicate point. Manchester City's goalkeeping position may undergo a complete overhaul. With both goalkeepers in the squad involved in rumors of departure, the club may need to enter the market in search of a new number 1, something that was not foreseen just a few weeks ago. Between the need to strengthen the fullback positions, the potential goalkeeper change, and the imminent departures of De Bruyne and Bernardo, Manchester City finds itself at a crossroads. The next transfer window will be crucial in defining the club's direction not only for next season, but for the years to come. Managing this transition will be key to maintaining competitiveness and ensuring that the post-De Bruyne era does not lose the brilliance of previous ones. While the future seems increasingly uncertain for some iconic figures of the squad, Manchester City knows it cannot lose focus on the present. The battle for a spot in the top 4 of the Premier League remains intense, and every point earned becomes vital for securing qualification for the next Champions League. Even though the season is far from repeating the absolute brilliance of previous ones, the team still has room to turn a year of highs and lows into something minimally satisfactory, or even surprising, if they manage a final push. Within this context, the experience of players like De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva continues to be a key differentiator. Even with the shadows of departure on the horizon, both maintain a level of commitment that impresses. Kevin, in particular, seems to be playing with the intensity of someone who wants to leave a memorable final impression. Against Crystal Palace, this was clear to see. Leadership, passing precision, offensive presence, and a free kick that reminded us of his most inspired days. Bernardo, on the other hand, may be the most enigmatic of the group. Although he has lost prominence in some games, his tactical intelligence and versatility still make him one of the most valuable players in the squad. Able to play both centrally and on the wings, the Portuguese offers different solutions within Guardiola's system. His possible return to Benfica, in addition to impacting City, would bring significant excitement to Portuguese football, reigniting the emotional connection with the club that introduced him to European football. Amid this silent renewal process, the board is also beginning to plan replacements. Names like Nathaniel Brown and Destiny Udogie do not appear by chance. The search for young players with a good reading of the game and the ability to play in different areas of the field aligns perfectly with Guardiola's philosophy, which demands from his players an almost surgical understanding of space and time during matches. Nathaniel Brown, with his ability to occupy the left side but also float into the middle, could be an interesting piece in a system that requires constant movement. If he joins, he will be shaped within the most demanding tactical school in Europe, where even fullbacks need to think like midfielders. His comparison with João Cancelo, who shone in exactly this hybrid role at City, suggests that there is something to explore there. The transition, however, will not be simple. The potential departure of experienced players, coupled with uncertainties in the defensive sector, puts enormous pressure on the board and coaching staff. Guardiola's future after 2025 is still an unknown, and even though he has a contract, rumors of a possible break or change of scenery after almost a decade at the club are beginning to grow. All of this reinforces the importance of structuring the squad with an eye on a scenario without Pep. In this context, Hugo Viana's role, tipped to take over the sporting director position, will be decisive. Known for his detailed management at Braga, where he built competitive teams on tight budgets, Viana could bring to City a vision more focused on financial sustainability and valuing homegrown assets. This doesn't mean the club will stop making heavy investments, but perhaps they will do so in a more strategic manner, looking not only at ready-made stars but also at young players with the potential to become key figures. Thus, attention is also turning to Manchester City's youth system, which has been producing talents at a constant pace. Names like James McAtee and Rico Lewis have already shown they are capable of joining the first team. The idea of giving these young players more space in the coming years is not just a trend but a necessity. The blend of youth and experience could be the key to keeping the club competitive in a scenario that is set to become even more balanced, with rivals like Arsenal and Liverpool strengthening year after year. And there is still an element that cannot be ignored: the external market. Saudi Arabia continues to invest heavily and has already shown interest in players like Ederson and De Bruyne. Inter Miami, in the United States, emerges as an alternative for players looking for a smoother career transition, maintaining competitive levels but with less physical intensity. These transfer possibilities to emerging markets open new routes and require City to always be a step ahead in talent identification. Ederson's situation in particular raises debates within the club. Considered one of the most influential goalkeepers in modern football, especially for his footwork, he still has a market in Europe and beyond, but recent injuries raise concerns. The recurrence of his groin issue indicates that it might be time to consider a renewal in this area. Ortega Moreno, while competent, does not have the status of an undisputed starter. If Ederson leaves, it will be necessary to find someone with a similar technical profile, and that is no easy task. On the other side of the pitch, there is an expectation regarding the team's offensive performance without Kevin De Bruyne. His departure will leave a creative void. Even though players like Phil Foden, Julian Alvarez, and Jack Grealish have quality, none of them combine the vision, passing precision, and quiet leadership that De Bruyne exhibits. The midfield reconstruction will inevitably involve impactful signings, and City is well aware of that. With all of this happening in parallel, Injuries, departures, transitions in the board, scouting of young talents, the atmosphere at the Etihad is one of a certain silence before the storm. Guardiola continues to work intensely, trying to maintain competitiveness in a draining season, but behind the scenes, planning for the next cycle has already begun. Fans, for their part, are living a mix of emotions, proud of the recent history, but anxious about the upcoming changes. They know that nothing lasts forever, not even one of the most successful projects in the recent history of English football. But they also trust that, with the level of organization and structure the club has, it is possible to navigate this phase without losing prominence. And perhaps it is precisely here that lies the greatest strength of the current Manchester City, the ability to reinvent itself. It has done so over the last decade, moving from a team that was just rich to becoming a global sporting powerhouse. And now, with the imminent departures of players like De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, and possibly Ederson, it will have the chance to prove, once again, that it knows how to turn challenges into opportunities. In the coming chapters of this season, in addition to the fight for a Champions League spot, the club can still dream of titles. It is alive in the competitions, and as we well know, City is a specialist in growing when it matters most. All eyes will be on every decision, every game, and every move behind the scenes, because deep down, everyone wants to know what the new Manchester City will look like, and whether it will be able to maintain the same brilliance even when its oldest stars are no longer on the pitch. And so, the future of Manchester City is shaped with many challenges and expectations. What will become of the club after these changes? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. City will remain a powerhouse that knows how to reinvent itself. So, City fans, what do you think of all these changes? How do you feel about the possible departures of figures like Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, and Ederson? Will the team be able to maintain its high level even with so many reconfigurations in the squad? If you enjoyed this content and want to stay up to date with all the latest Manchester City news, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates. That way, you'll always be informed about everything happening in the world of football. See you in the next video.